Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. The 27th of October, Kashmir Black Day, when we look back at what's happening to our Kashmiri brethren in Kashmir, and it's 76 years today, we'll be talking about what the Kashmiris are going through, the blatant brutality that is at play across the border. Of course, Pakistan has always stood by with its unwavering support as far as the Kashmiri cause is concerned. We've also, of course, seen the Prime Minister talk about our support for, unflinching support for the Kashmiri cause. Also, Pakistan remains committed to ensuring we can provide all assistance possible. I also want to look back and talk about how the world continues to be silent to the sufferings of Kashmiris across the border, and this is elsewhere also at play in the world. We must talk about the way the world is looking at commercialism, the way the world is looking at its own interests, and leaving aside the humanitarian cause which is at play not only in Kashmir but at other parts of the world also. The kind of brutality at play as the world continues to watch. So many resolutions of the United Nations are continuously flouted, and we stand where we do after 76 years of this constant struggle. We look at babies, we look at children being massacred, we also saw the way pellet guns were used against little children, against women, the brutality against children that's at play for all of us to see in Kashmir as elsewhere also. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Dr. Awais Bin Wasi, who's an expert on Kashmir affairs. Thank you for being with us today. We also have with us Bakir Younas, who's an Arab journalist. Thank you for joining us today. We'll be joined by Dr. Farzana Bari, who's a human rights activist. Dr. Farzana, can you hear me? And other guests, we'll be joined by other guests also. Dr. Awais, like I said, this is now, becoming the norm, unfortunately, in the world. The way that you've seen the Kashmiris suffer across the border. You've seen the kind of brutality at play. You've seen women suffer. You've seen children suffer. You've seen, this constant struggle, the barbarity that is at play across the border. And yet today, 76 years after, we are still talking about what's happening across the border. What do you say to that? Is nothing resonating with the world at all?
This is very unfortunate that we are living in an immoral world where moral values, where canons of morality, where values, and those values for their protection, some institutions have been established. For example, United Nations organization that was established to maintain peace and justice in the world after Second World War, and similar many other organizations. But when we see the situation on the ground, so we witness that selective justice is applied when the issues pertaining to Muslims they come. For example, when the world wanted to resolve any issue, for example, issue of East Timor, issue of South Sudan, Brexit, where referendum took place. So in such issues, because the world powers, they are aligned to the some stakes, so they try to resolve those issues. But when it comes to Kashmir, when it comes to Muslims in India, when it comes to Palestine, so we unfortunately see the criminal silence on the part of the powerful world capitals as well as the global organizations. They should have taken a stand against such kind of brutality, such kind of persecution which is taking place in Jammu and Kashmir. For example, that if we, as today, 27th of October, that for the last 75 years, we have been observing this day, we have been, this day is being marked as the Black Day, to condemn Indian forcible occupation of Jammu and Kashmir. But after 75 years, we couldn't see, any responsible conduct of global organizations and global players. So the situation in the ground, that is the apt case of human rights violations which is taking place in Jammu and Kashmir. For example, that the total population of the state, we can say, that is 15 million, more than 15 million, and the armed forces deployed over there, 900,000. 10,000 women, they have been disappeared. 10,000, more than 10,000 people, they are languishing in jails, including political prisoners, journalists, students, writers, civil society activists. So, and in the recent, in response to a question, BJP government minister in Lok Sabha, he told that 10,000 women, they have been disappeared quite recently. So when that is the situation on the ground, and there is there is no intervention by the international organizations, by the powerful world capitals, then we come to this conclusion that this world is perhaps not for those who seek justice, who seek those liberties which are enshrined in these documents, but practically we do not see on the ground.
Bakir Sahib, do you agree with this? I mean, of course, there's little room to argue that the world is continuing to watch. There is, they want to exploit their own interests. To an extent, our foreign policy all over the world can be dictated by personal interests. There's no denying that. But where does the buck stop, in your opinion? Where is it going to end, and where is it going to become about the hundreds and thousands and millions of lives that are being lost every day?
Actually, what I see, the laws which have been established by United Nations, by this, the superpowers, these laws actually made to, limit us from reaching to our rights. It have actually, put us in a prison. We are chained to this laws. We are unable to ask for our rights, ask for what we actually own because of these laws. So I believe that we as Muslim Ummah, or these countries who are facing, especially Kashmiris, Palestinians, have to understand that these laws are not for them. It's actually to imprison them. It's actually to, it's a creator of obstacles in front of them. So we have to remove these laws, and we have to implement our own way, to reach to our rights. We are facing problem in Kashmir. The same thing in Palestine. There is no value for the human life. There is no value for the human rights. There is no value for anything we own in these two places. So I think the only way is to either to face the enemy with the same way he's dealing with us, or to create our own way. This ummah, this nation, have to come back. We have to come strong. We have to face with the strong. We see how U.S., France, everybody now united with Israel to face Gaza. So the same thing should be. We need to be united. We need to stand all together to face what these challenges, which is actually hurting and killing us every day.
Let me go to Dr. Farzana Bari, who's a human rights activist. Farzana, can you hear me?
I do.
Farzana, we're talking about, and I think we have from time to time discussed this with you also, the fact that the world continues to watch what's happening as far as Kashmir is concerned, and also now we're looking at other parts of the world where the same thing, if not the kind of barbarity that is at play, has perhaps increased. Again, like Bakir Sahib said, he said, we have to look after our own, we have to unite in a the Muslim Ummah, all of that. Do you see that happening? Do you see that happening at all in terms of perhaps, a strong Islamic unity or a bloc emerge that can perhaps then lead to, perhaps resonate with the world and talk. We talk about showing the world what's happening, we talk about telling the world what's happening, but that is already there. We are looking at UN resolutions being flouted left, right and center. All of that is right there. So what will it take for this to resonate, in your opinion?
I think you're absolutely right. I don't think the Muslim world has really taken up the case of Kashmir question at the global level. Look at the Islamic world. It's very unfortunate, whether it is Kashmir or whether it's Palestine. I think the Arab world has played no role, and one of the reasons is that most of our, unfortunately, these Arab states are basically they are stooges of imperialist power of America. And some of them already had, for example, a very strong diplomatic relationship with Israel as well as in India, and rather than boycotting, because unless the conflict, and it's not a conflict, it's a right to self-determination as far as Kashmiris are concerned, and I think this is such a black and white sort of a situation, there's no ambiguity in that there is a majority of Muslims who, in the beginning, when the partition took place, they wanted to go in favor of, they wanted to join Pakistan. Although now I feel that the Kashmiris should have been given a right to decide whether they want to join Pakistan or India, or they want to have an independent state, But I think these Kashmiri people have been totally left alone. There is no such support which is given to them. There is extreme human rights violations which are taking place. India has been, it's basically transcending all, human rights.
Farzana, the right to self-determination. Is an inalienable right in the sense that United Nations recognizes it, and all over the world, nations have the right to self-determination.
Yeah,
Kashmir is a classic example of that. There's no denying that. Yet, the resolutions that are there at this time, United Nations resolutions, which are self-expression, self-determination, the fact that this is not about, it's not a territorial dispute as such. The way that India is making it, the way that India is choosing to camouflage the reality and show it to the world. For the states that support Kashmir, what is left for us to do?
Absolutely. I think UN should have played that role, because the UN resolution is there which does give the right to self-determination to Kashmiris, but the UN failed to actually force India to basically implement that decision. And it's not like now this more than 75 years, and the Kashmiris are fighting for their right to self-determination. And the kind of, injustices and human rights violations which are taking place, the world is totally blind to that, whether it's a mass, rape or using this kind of, phosphorus gas against the, Kashmiris, or they are using these guns and, but I think you don't see that kind of outrage, neither at the UN level nor at also, I think, at the public human rights community level. And I think that's where I believe, unlike Palestine, where the world really knows, what Israel is all about, as an imperialist, as a colonial power, and what they have been doing with Palestinians. Unfortunately, I think we failed, Pakistan, including the Muslim world, failed to basically inform the human rights community, the global community, to tell what, what India is doing and what is the right, why Kashmiri has a right to self-determination, and the kind of, the fascist regime of India, the way they are violating people's rights in Kashmir, there's hardly any global awareness on that issue. And I think that's what I feel is a major failure when it comes to, the Pakistan as well as the Muslim world. We haven't really support the cause of the Kashmiris, and the Kashmiris themselves are the ones who are actually struggling, to have a right to self-determination, and they are paying a very heavy price. Every day the young Kashmiris are getting killed. They're the women who are getting raped,
Farzana,
the children who are
let me
getting
interject
killed.
here. I will come back to you. I'm going to go to AVM Ijaz Malik Saab, and then I will come back to you. Ji, Ijaz Saab, can you hear me?
Yes, please. I can hear you.
Ijazat, there is, I've just been talking to Dr. Farzana and Dr. Awais Bin Wasi, Bakir Younas Saab here. I don't know how much of it you were able to hear. But do you think that there is perhaps a time for introspection as far as the cause of Kashmir is concerned? Because I think something that Dr. Farzana pointed out, she said, if we look at what's happening in Palestine, do you think perhaps, the way that telling the right story to the world is very important? Telling the world what's happening, telling the world the kind of, again, I want to use this word because there really is no other word, the kind of barbarity that is at play, and the efforts that are being made to camouflage it constantly by India. When we look at, particularly when we look at Kashmir, and because we are talking about Kashmir with reference to the Black Day, October 27th is, do you see the contrast here if you compare it with Palestine in that sense? Are we failing to tell the story adequately? Are we remiss in that? Do you agree, or do you think that we've done our part?
Unfortunately, we haven't, played our cards well. You see, it was India who went to United Nations and who sought intervention from United Nations, and then United Nations came up with, a host of Security Council resolutions. And but what ultimately happened was that the Kashmir issue, it went into the deep freezer for quite some time, and then from that international issue, we come to the stage of 1972, the Simla Accord, wherein India managed to project this as a bilateral issue. And then ultimately what we saw with this last abrogation of Article 370 of Indian own constitution, now they call it their internal issue. So that is how the entire Kashmir problem has been, played by Indians. Unfortunately, it is, if at all somebody talks about it internationally, they call it a dispute, a territorial dispute between India and Pakistan, which is not true. It does have something to do with territory, but more than that, first of all, we have to project to the world that it's not only India and Pakistan. There are three, stakeholders. There are three parts of this problem, and Kashmiris are the rightful, partner to this conflict. So unless we bring Kashmiris on the center stage, the Kashmir problem will never be understood in its true perspective by anybody in the world. So first of all, we need to, bring Kashmiri on the center stage. Then we have to organize internationally wherever we can through all our diplomatic channels and even the international law, that we have to project this as a human right crisis, which is one of its kind. As Dr. Farzana mentioned.
On that note, I agree, it is a human rights crisis, of one of its kind. I'm going to, before I go to Dr. Awais Bin Wasi, I want to ask Bakir Saab this. Bakir Saab, the same question to you. You are, of course, following, all of us are also following the Palestine issue. Do you think that is the stark contrast here? Do you think that, the way that we tell the story to the world, perhaps not that that's really having a lot of effect, as far as, like you yourself said, America or France or all of these other countries, they're not really, it's not making making them change what's happening. But do you think that they are perhaps able, or the Palestine story is perhaps there for all to see? That story is being told more vociferously than the Kashmir story. I don't want to make a comparison, but I do want to discuss where we can perhaps work more diligently for the Kashmiri cause also.
I think we have like made our work correctly, but we have gone to the wrong place.
Okay.
If we have, let's say, assume I have a fire at my home, so I'll call the fire brigade. But here we have, they are actually they are the occupiers, and we actually telling them that we are being occupied. So this is the mistake. We are supposed to, we are choosing the wrong place to go to complain. This is not the right place. The United Nations is not anymore the right place. USA is not the right place. These international community is not anymore the right place.
What is the right place?
The right place is us.
Okay.
Our nation, the belief, the trust in our force, in our people, in our societies, to go collectively, to understand there is no one else will bring our rights but us.
Okay.
It is we who have to move, it is we who have to struggle for ourselves, it's we who have actually to stand with each other. They united the same way they are doing with them. See, they are united now. You can see US forces coming, France is moving, UK is moving, but what is on our side? Nothing to Kashmir, nothing to the Palestinians. Because we are again going and asking the United Nations, please solve our issue. We are again asking them to US, please solve our problem. No, US will not solve our problem. Actually the creator of our problem, how they will solve it? So we have now to look to ourselves, we have to work collectively, not Palestine alone, not Pakistan alone, but the whole nation, this whole ummah, this all Arab and Muslim countries.
Dr. Awais, do you agree with this? You think that perhaps, are asking them, the United Nations, but even the United Nations role, if we look at the Palestinian issue, we've seen the way that they've been rebuffed by the West.
Yes, as far as this comparison between the two issues are concerned, so we can see that more vociferous projection we see in the case of Palestine. There are several geopolitical reasons also. Middle East is very important for the US and for other major stakeholders, and Israel's role in the US administration. So that is why it's very important, and it's sensitive, rather more sensitive to them for their to advance their interest. And we, as Air Marshal Saab was saying, that we try to project, and to a larger extent we are able to project the issue of Kashmir at a global level, but I think there is a substantial lack in this projection. For example, one example that I can give is Edward Said. Edward Said is one of the very strong advocates of Palestinian cause, and he has written a lot. He wrote The Question of Palestine, he wrote The Politics of Dispossession, and he has written several other books and articles, Similarly, Mehmoon Darwish has written a lot, resistance poetry from exile that he has been contributing. When it comes to Kashmir, unfortunately we couldn't have, or we couldn't produce such a towering intellectual figure, so whose voice could be heard at international, if not forum, but among the intelligentsia. So I think that in this aspect we should have done much, but we lacked substantially. So drawing this comparison, I think there are lessons that we can learn from this comparison, that this is perhaps the right time that we can tell our story, Kashmiri story, to the world. As this is the right time, 27th of October, we should take stock of our policy. We should review our policy and the initiatives that we are taking. And those initiatives, I think they could be broadly divided. One, the ones could be taken by the government, by the state, and ones that could be taken by the intelligentsia, by the public, by the society. I think there is a large room in the second one, in society. For example, in academia we can produce discourse. In Kashmir, that the conflict area, but I see over there is a lot of literature that has already come, and there is many more books and fictional narratives and prison memoirs. They are being written currently under the conflict, and after some time, when curbs are lifted, you will see that there is a plethora of resistance literature that you will find coming from Srinagar. I think that the similar discourse we should generate in Azad Kashmir and diaspora and other Kashmiris spread across the world. Only then we could be able to influence global intelligentsia, and we can make our case more persuasive and more robust in the case of human rights crisis. So I think that this dimension must be focused to advance this issue at international fora and to the global community. And once it is done, there would be the pressure of international community towards the government. And for example, that I can also relate it, the example of colonialism. When colonialism took place, so there was no resistance from the public against the colonizing forces. The reason was that they have been convinced that they are going to spread the white man's mission or the cultural mission. But later on, when it was exposed, so that community, the Western community or Western intelligentsia,
exposed, that's what I'm saying. But the way that we expose them, I mean, that's important for the world to see. Unfortunately, till now, hasn't India also been able to camouflage what they're doing as far as, the activities in the world, trying to ensure that there's no internet access in the occupied area, trying to hold summits there to hide the actual status?
Exactly. There are two things. One is the economic dimension. India, the status and the character which enjoys India in the global community, which unfortunately we are not enjoying. This is one thing. This is the bitter reality. And India takes advantage of that position, number one. Second thing is that India advances this case and tries to mislead the global community by organizing such sessions as recently G20 summit held in Srinagar.
So it's a very calculated and premeditated propaganda that's happening. The steps that are being taken are very, thought over, and they're being done to erode the actual status, right?
Exactly. You're very much right that India, the policy that is being practiced over there, that is well formulated, and this is we keep on saying this is the Deauville doctrine which is in practice. So the Deauville doctrine includes that you can formulate the policy in such a way that becomes a defensive offensive. That policy is termed as defensive offensive. So India has this false narrative, but due to this propaganda machinery, what it did with creating the false network of websites, what it created against by creating some documentaries, Kashmir files, in which India tried to project pundits in such a way that doesn't correspond with the ground reality.
Let me go to Dr. Farzana Bari. Dr. Farzana, the fact that there is propaganda, the fact that India it's premeditated, what's happening all over, the way that they're doing it, like I was talking to Dr. Awais also, it's very calculated. There's the way each step is pre-thought and, premeditated, and it's to erode the status of Kashmir as, an occupied, illegally occupied area. We are looking at summits that are happening, but this question that Bakir Saab talks about, he says that, we can all unite against it as far as, the Muslim Ummah is concerned. Is that possible? And how much clout, how much power will we be able to have? Is it a possibility for any cause, for example, the Kashmiri cause or the Palestinian cause? Dr. Farzana? Sorry, I think there's a problem with audio. Bakir Saab, the same. How much effect is it going to be? How effective is it going to be in your opinion?
First of all, I just want to come back to your point. You're saying they are doing a very calculated, steps. Of course, it's being a country occupying other country, other people. It's not something easy. It's not something simple. You see, in Palestine, it's 75 years, and we see people again coming back and fighting their occupiers. In Kashmir, it's the same. You see, for long they've been occupied, and again the Kashmir is coming, standing up for their rights. So of course those countries will work on a very calculated steps. They will not decide anything without calculating and recalculating. The problem is on us now. Do we
How we
do we
not
have a
react,
calculated reactions?
Okay.
Do we have? We don't.
We don't.
We only have reactions. We don't have any actions. We don't have any strategy so far. What is the strategy to solve Kashmir? Nothing. What is the strategy to solve Palestine issue? Nothing. So this is the problem. They have their strategy. It is calculated, and they are working on it. But come to other side. What do we have? Do we have a strategy working? Do we have? No. We just have a reaction. For the first time that the Palestinians, they have started doing something, everybody stood against them. You know, why you have attacked Israel? You were not supposed to attack Israel. So you have attacked Israel, so we'll kill everybody in Gaza now. See?
But are we seeing a reaction? That's my question. Are we, there is maybe a hue and cry, but is that resulting in anything? There is no ceasefire.
There's no ceasefire because there's no, we have no value in their eye.
That's
we have no value in their rules and their regulations.
Exactly.
Even in the eyes of United Nations, we have no value. In the eye of our people, which is our neighbors, even in the US, we Palestinians have no value. We Muslims have no value in their eyes. So that's why the ceasefire will not take place. The ceasefire, according to them, will only take place when people of Gaza either go out from Gaza or they surrender somehow. The same thing they want to do in Kashmir. They want to build Kashmir except the occupiers. See, they want actually to change us. As a human being, you never accept an occupier. This is something very natural.
Before I go to Wasi Saab, you said to me earlier on when we were talking about Palestine, that nobody welcomes an intruder in their house and nobody accepts an intruder.
True.
It's as simple as that. Whether we look at the Kashmir cause or whether we look at the Palestinian cause.
True.
That's the root of the conflict, is it not?
Of course it is. Of course it is. So this will continue. I'm saying, but what do you want? They want to take a step. They want to punish us in a way that you have to accept our occupier. How this going to be?
Fair enough. Ji, Dr. Wasi, you spoke about literature. You spoke about books that you think will make a difference to tell the story of the Kashmiris. What about the unity that Bakir Saab talks about? You think that the Islamic world uniting? You think us having the kind of clout that is needed? Unfortunately, the reality is there for us to have an effect.
This, as we say that united we stand, divided we fall.
Yes.
This is the well-established fact. And I think this the current Palestinian tragedy is the right moment to review our conduct and review our policies. Pakistan took initiative, RCD, and alliance with Iran and Turkey and Pakistan. But and later on, OIC after 1967, OIC emerged as a global Muslim body. But the role these organizations, especially the OIC, it should have played, unfortunately it couldn't play and it couldn't get the desired dividends, despite the fact that there was a lot of potential, rather there is a potential in terms of resources, in terms of the advantages that the Muslim world is having. But now I think it's the right time that we should sit together. The Muslim countries, they should sit together and they should try to create an alternative against these occupying forces, because enough is enough. It's almost 1 century. So if this attitude of silence and this attitude of condonation and this attitude of just issuing statement will continue, I think that this occupation will not end. It could be Kashmir or it could be Palestine or any other region. I think that now it's time that we have talked a lot, we have discussed a lot. It's time that the leaders should sit together and formulate a policy.
We've had a role as far as the OIC is concerned. Do you think perhaps a more dynamic role is needed at this time? Perhaps for there to talk about what's happening in the Muslim world at this time, and what can be done, the steps that can be taken on every front. We need a media outcry.
For example, one thing that we must discuss here is today that, for example, that what is happening in Jammu and Kashmir, the largest, one of the largest Muslim majority state, over there, and there is a silence over that because the economic stakes and economic interest perhaps they eclipse their the right vision that should have been taken. Similarly, what is happening in India against Muslims? They are being lynched. I came across a statement in which it was mentioned that more than 500 mosques they had been vandalized. So if this situation is going on in India and in Jammu and Kashmir, and Muslim countries, they are signing defense pacts and they are opening mandars over there, this is in fact a question mark. When
we saw what happened in terms, Article 25A.
25.
Yes, we saw the move to change the demographic, and now there's also a move to actually have Indian soldiers and to make it their place of living. They change it, change the structure. So obviously, for that to stop, there has to be a very strong international reaction.
Exactly,
and that's not there.
In order, this policy that demographic redesigning the demography, in terms of that policy, Israel and India, they are similar. They are similar and they are learning things from each other. And what Israel did in Palestine, India is doing the same thing.
Perhaps
in Jammu
if
and
the
Kashmir.
world had reacted to
so the point here is, if they
Yes.
are united in formulating policies against Muslims, so then why can't we
be united against what's happening?
against what's happening? We are not, we are not
But
saying
what
that
are the causes, in your opinion, of there not being that kind of unity?
there are, I think that there are a lot of I could say that differences, sectarian differences, ethnic differences, and some other differences, and because of those differences and because of their alignment to the global powers to have some interest, I think that is the reason which comes in the way of our unity. For example, that Arab countries, in order to have their interest in Middle East, they are aligned with the global powers, unfortunately. So in the region also.
You're saying that there are vested interests, and those are perhaps more superior,
Exactly.
more important to individual nations than the united interest of their being. But Bakir Sahib, isn't it, perhaps if the world had learnt from what's happened in Kashmir, there wouldn't have been the kind of bloodshed that we are looking at in Palestine.
Just mention one thing. Let me start with it. You see, our enemy is very weak in a way that they don't dare to fight any army. So the Indians are not attacking Pakistan. They know that Pakistan army is very strong. Pakistan army can retaliate. Pakistan army can, we have seen what they have done when they try to use their aircraft in Pakistan. The same thing we see with Israelis. A bunch of people. I won't say an army. They are not even an army. They're not even a proper militancy. They're not proper force. They just entered and they have in one day they have destroyed all this what you can say, like perspective that the undefeated army. They are actually just targeting civilians. They just reach to the points where our Muslims are weak, and they attack and they do this kind of brutal attacks. So the problem is, with this weak enemy, we are actually not taking a hard step, telling them that you can't do anymore. This is your limits, and you can't cross it. We have to make our own limits. We are not supposed to come back again to United Nations. I don't think we can go to OIC. OIC should be activated, should take real steps on realistic form. An army should be moved. Something has to happen. But keeping the world, keeping the Muslims, keeping the Arab countries in this way, keeping Kashmir in this way, I think this responsibility at the end relies on this country, relies on these armies. We have 23 Muslim countries, we have 23 army, what they're doing.
Do you agree with Dr. Awais, that there are vested interests at play as far as Muslim nations are concerned?
Sorry, repeat the question.
That there are vested interests. Every nation, every Muslim country has their own interests, and perhaps that is being, taking precedence over this.
I definitely agree, 100% agree, and this is the problem. You see, staying united means that, okay, because of this cause, I will sacrifice this and that. People are sacrificing in Kashmir. People are sacrificing in Palestine. Why are the nations not sacrificing? Is Kashmir is only belong to Kashmir? Is it just something separated to nobody? We know they're not our brothers. They're not our religious brother. They're not our, Persians are not related to the other Muslim women. They are not related to Arabs. How come that we leave them die? How come we leave them under occupation? We have resources, we have power. We have to sacrifice as well. They are sacrificing. Why not do others do? So actually, this responsibility, this blame goes on all other countries, because we were not supposed to leave Kashmiris. We are not supposed to let Palestinians face all this alone. We should also come together.
Fair enough. Dr. Wasi, your last comments. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. What do you think we can do? Let's talk about concrete steps, in your opinion. 1, 2, 3 that we can take, Pakistan can take, for example.
With regard to the issue of Palestine, I think that Pakistan should take initiative to unite the Muslim world in such a way that we should have a united stance against such occupation and such carnage and such macabre which is taking place, unfortunately, in Palestine. This is number one that Pakistan can take. With regard to Kashmir, what Pakistan can take is that Pakistan should adopt a more muscular, robust policy against Indian expansionist designs and Indian demographic designs in Jammu and Kashmir, and it should approach the relevant legal forums at international level, and it should sensitize the world community as well as the forums about what is happening in Kashmir, because the reason is that this is if we get late, so the process which is taking place in Jammu and Kashmir, there will be the sinister results and sinister ramifications that we can see in Jammu and Kashmir. So because they are trying to unilaterally alter the demographic composition, so it is the right time that the concerned forum should be approached. And the third step that I should say is that Pakistan should encourage Kashmiri intelligentsia living in Pakistan, Azad Kashmir and across the world, that they should produce some discourse, because if that discourse is produced by indigenous Kashmiri people, so there will be more chances that world gives attention to their story told by the victims. I think that these three steps should be taken by Pakistan.
Fair enough. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Awais Bin Wasi. Bakir Younas, thank you for joining us. Dr. Farzana Bari, thank you for being with us. It is the right time for us and Pakistan and the world to look at where things are headed, not only as far as Kashmir is concerned, but also what we are looking at as far as Palestine is concerned. The question is it not a time for unity as far as the Muslims all over the world are concerned? Is it not a time to perhaps realign our interests with that of the humanitarian interests of the Muslims that we are seeing, the flagrant abuse, human rights abuse that we are looking at in India, that we've been looking at for 76 years. If we look at Palestine, it's for longer. The question is, when will it stop and how will it stop? Will it stop with unity? Will it stop with telling the right story to the world? Let's join our hands. Of course, Pakistan has always stood by the Kashmiris. We continue to do so. Perhaps a more proactive, more robust approach is needed. Perhaps a more, not a reactionary, but a more, action-oriented approach by Pakistan also towards telling the right story as far as Kashmir is concerned, so that the propaganda and the kind of mirage that is being put to the world can be broken, and we can see, and the world can see, the reality of the Indian barbarity across the border. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.